Now, time to begin. Oh, the voice from the heavens. Jeff, we need you up here. Jeff is an audiobook narrator, one of the worst. But people love him for some reason. It must be the cat. Anyway, welcome to Mastering Live Events for Authors. I am having a little bit of feedback, but that's okay. And maybe if I stand back against the wall like this. My name is Ben Wolf. I am one of your hosts for the event. My other co-host is Carice Crow, my lovely and talented and beautiful wife.
I'm standing and waving.
Yes. As instructed, she is standing and waving. Thank you for doing that, honey. We are your hosts today. We are both independently published authors. I also do have a trilogy published with 20Books. It's sci-fi horror. So I'm a hybrid. I did initially publish the first book in the series myself, and then 20 bought it under the condition that I write 2 more. So that was a very gratifying experience for me. But most of everything else that we do is independently published, like most of us in here. Thank you all for coming. Thrilled to have you here. How many of you have ever done any sort of live event before? Just by a show of hands. Just toss a few out. Like, where have you done a live event? Anyone, just shout at me. It's okay. Gen Con? Yeah, okay, thanks, Jeff. Gen Con. Here is a good example. Where else? Libraries, anyone? Anyone set up at a library? Anyone set up at a farmer's market, at a mall? There's a museum. What'd you say? Pride? Pride Fest, fantastic. Books, Cat Con, yep. Comic cons in general, depending on your genre, can be fantastic. Craft fairs are fantastic. And what did you say? Excellent, yes. County fairs, yes. Have you had a lot of success with those?
In my hometown, yes.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Corporate events can be fantastic as well. So we'll talk about some of these different types of events throughout the course of the session. One thing that, if any of you were in my session last year, this is going to be somewhat repeated, but we have intentionally shortened the presentation this year because I went slightly long last year, and also this year I have invited 4 different panelists to come up and join me. They are experts in their respective fields, so that we can have an extended Q&A time, including me and our panelists, where you can ask about different aspects like printing, design, live events themselves, makeup. If you want to ask about makeup, I'm sure someone on the panel will be very good at that. Photography, our conference photographer, Arpit, is here, for example. So if you have any questions related to anything live events, we can probably get you covered. So without further ado, we're going to jump in. You'll see this slide again. It's shameless advertising because, hey, that's what you do at a live event. That's my book. If you want to dig really deep into the subject, I have several copies available at the book signing on Saturday. Excuse me, not Saturday. If you come on Saturday, no one will be here. But Friday is the day that we will be doing the signing. And then if you want to listen to a great podcast about the industry of publishing, Carice co-hosts a podcast with Amanda Liedeke, who is a VP at a literary agency, and her boss, Chip McGregor, is the literary agent who's coming to this conference. I owe him a text message. Actually, Hun, would you grab this and text him back? Because I meant to do that, but did not do that. Anyway, forgive the interruption. Anyway, moving on. So again, you'll see this slide again, so no fear if you don't get all the details right now. We have done a lot of shows over the years. I'm well over 100 at this point, especially since this year alone I am doing 36 shows spread throughout the weekends. And it makes me mad because Matt Dinneman told me that his most was 42, and now I have to do more shows just to beat him. He can't be better at everything than me, can he? I don't think so. So this was our setup at our first comic convention, our first real substantial live event with a big audience. Now, as you can see, it's not bad. It's not outstanding either. And so with this, we managed to sell throughout the course of the weekend with a decent placement in a rather large arena, we did probably $300 or so. And so at the time, for having only 2 books out, maybe it was 400, 300 to 400. 2-day show, Saturday and Sunday. To do that well with only 2 books, I thought, okay, well, maybe there's some hope with this. I had a lot of extra stuff around the table, some that I didn't need. They provided the pipe and drape. I decided, oh, I've got this great rope light. It's purple. I'm going to hang that up. It did nothing for the display, but you know, we hung it up because I had nothing to lose. We even put a TV up there, and Carice, my lovely wife, was kind enough to let me do the event on our anniversary. We went out for a nice dinner to celebrate, but she was kind enough. And so shamelessly, on that TV on the second day, we said, it's our anniversary, buy some books. I don't know whether or not that worked, but again, we did fairly well. Fast forward to our setup now. This is, as you can see, a much grander setup. This was just a few weeks ago in a mall in Omaha. Our best show ever at that Omaha location with a similar setup and a similar quantity of books. I've got about 20 books published. Carice has got some out as well. The best we ever did in Omaha was $2,500 in one weekend. And obviously, you have to take out the travel expenses, the lodging expenses, the cost of the show itself. But even so, we came out very, very much in the black. So that is, Omaha is not the reason, but the principle behind that you can make a good amount of money doing live events, that is why Craig wanted me to give this class. So here we are, and that's what we're going to talk about. Our goal for this class, we could talk about a whole bunch of different options, different things, but the one goal that we're going to discuss is how can authors do successful live events? And that word successful is really the key word, because if you go and you lose money, maybe it's successful because you know you can kind of write it off as a marketing expense, but man, it's so much better if you can walk away with a lot of money too, because that's part of what this is all about. Obviously, we want fans to love our books. We want to build our followings. We want to impact people's lives, especially depending on what we might be writing. But if you can make some money while you do it, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to do all those other things, because then you can keep doing it. So I don't want to come across as jaded or harsh, but if you can't make money doing this, then you really need to rethink why you're doing it and figure out if there's a way you can make some money. So we're going to talk about how to do that. There are 3 parts we're going to discuss. Number 1 is prepare the preparations. Number 2 is bond over books. And number 3 is never give up. We'll talk about each of those in turn, and each of those are broken into smaller parts as well. And again, you will see this slide again because we will do a brief review at the end. Number 1, prepare the preparations. First and foremost, your book covers have to be of legendary quality. If you are not willing to spend whatever money it takes, whether it's a lot or a little, to get an exceptional book cover that stands out, or book covers for each one, then I don't want to be harsh, but you should get up and leave right now, because I can't help you. You have to have great cover art to even get people interested. I cannot emphasize this enough, and so I'm not going to emphasize it any further. I'm just going to move on. Get a great book cover, and we will talk about that. Jeneth Dick is here, and she's a fantastic cover artist and designer and illustrator. She'll be on our panel, and so if you have design-specific questions, you can chat with her. Number 2, your display has to be legendary. Part of the reason your book cover is so important is because if you are able to get the individual assets from your book covers, including your backgrounds, your typography, what fonts you're using, various images, character images, text images, whatever, if you can get access to that stuff, then you can repurpose it, as I have done over here. I haven't done this. I had Arpit, who was fantastic at design and layout as well as photography. He helped me with the layout for all of these wonderful things that you see here. And I've got these out as examples. Obviously, the table runners are a little bit cheaper. The full-blown tablecloth is more expensive, but it also has a bigger impact. So keep that in mind when you're deciding what is worth buying for your display and what is not. In addition to that, we have stand-up displays. You'll see some of our banners on Friday if you're able to make it to the live event. And we'll get into more info about that as we go along as well. All of this is important. Everything from how you set up your books to how your overall display looks to having a very tall sign. Having a tall sign as long as the venue allows it to be tall. Some venues are like, oh no, it can only be 8 feet tall, or oh no, it can only be 6 feet tall. Sometimes that's arbitrary, sometimes they have whatever reasons they want to have, but in general, bigger is better because this is not the time or the place to be humble, folks. You want to attract people. Did I just lose it? No, I'm still here. Good. You want to attract people to your booth, so make sure you do everything possible that you can to do that. Number 3, you have to be legendary. How many of you in here are legendary? Raise your hand. So that's most of you. Those of you who aren't yet legendary, we'll help you get there. It's fine. And what I mean by that is you don't actually have to say meet the legends on your banner, but I can tell you from experience it doesn't hurt. Even if you're only a legend in your own mind or only in your hometown, this is just branding. If you've got some serious accolades, if you're an award-winning author, even if it's only one small award, say you're an award-winning author. If you've hit a bestseller list, USA Today, New York Times, whatever, Fran's Meat Market Best of Books list, put that on there. Who cares? It's something, right? The thing with books, and this is one of the interesting dynamics between the vendors that we see at art shows, and I know Jerry knows all about this. We've got artists who create brilliant and beautiful art. Our friend Jeremy does incredible, beautifully colored work, and you see exactly what you're getting, right? A customer walks up and they say, I want that Venom print. That is incredible. I want that Superman print. The artwork, the coloring, the shading, it's beautiful. You know exactly what you're getting. But when you hold a book up to someone, sure, they're going to see the cover, but there's all of this in here that you have to sell them on. And so this is one way that you can reduce the likelihood that they're just going to walk away, because this gives them a reason to stick around. And that's really what it comes down to. We'll talk about it in the second section. You want to give them as many reasons to stick around and keep talking to you, keep hearing about your book or books as possible. So brand yourself accordingly. Go big or go home. Prepare the preparations. Your margins have to be legendary. Another one of our guests that we're going to be bringing up is Dave Sheets, who is a printing and distribution expert, been in the industry for 10 or 20,000 years now, something like that. So we'll talk about the printing aspect. In general, if you buy more books up front, you'll get them for a cheaper cost. That's really oversimplifying it, but for the most part, that's pretty accurate. If you can buy a lot of books, your cost per book goes down, and so therefore your margin per book goes up. And those margins, that's where you want to live. I typically recommend whatever you're getting your books for, you want to price it about 3 times more than that, because the book you sell, then the first third covers the cost of the book that you just sold. The second third covers the book you have to buy to replace it, and the final third is profit that you can use to feed your family, feed your dog, feed your family's dog, feed your dog's family, all of those types of things. So make sure that you are doing the appropriate math and the appropriate research to get a good deal on the books or other products like these bookmarks that you want to print and sell. Jerry has a ton of great products that she has in her booth, and she gets them all for great pricing because she's been doing this for a while. She knows how to find good resources. So I keep saying Jerry. Jerry, just wave, everybody. Thank you, Jerry Shepard. This is her first time at the conference. She does a lot of live events too, and we live in the same vicinity, so we see each other a lot. And I convinced her to come out to the conference this year. Thank you for coming. Moving on to part 2, bond over books. This is the customer interaction phase. So everything we talked about before was just getting you to the show, making sure you have a great presentation, making sure that you are ready to interact with fans. Now, here's how you actually start to interact with them. Bonding over books is a term that I use. Basically, it means you get to geek out with other readers. Now, we've all done that. We've all done that over a movie. Did you see the new Star Wars movie? Oh, it was garbage. Or did you love, what did you think of the new Hunger Games book? Or whatever. We've all done that. We've all geeked out over our favorite properties with other fans. The difference here is that you get to do it over your own books. You get to say, here's what I love about my books. And if you can convey that passion to them, you're taking another obstacle out of the way for them to be able to buy the book. Because again, they don't know what is inside your book. You kind of have to hint at it and tease them to get them interested enough to say, okay, I'll take the risk, I'll buy the book. And then they are your fan forever. So again, share your enthusiasm and your excitement for the books. How you do this, the one thing I want to do for my readers, whether they buy a book or not, is I want to create a fun and memorable experience if possible. If it's fun for them, it's more likely to be memorable because, especially if it's a show that you're going to go back to, that means they're probably going to come back to the show too. Because if it's a local event, usually you see a lot of the same foot traffic, and if you can convince them to buy one book, there's a decent chance that once they read it, they're going to come back and buy a lot more. That is, next year they'll buy 5, or they'll buy the rest of your catalog. I have had that happen. It's fantastic. I've got several fans, including Justin. Justin is one of my biggest fans. He's purchased all of my books. He's also an author, and he happens to live in the same metro area as Carice and me. And so he's to the point now where he comes to help me with shows sometimes because he wants to learn how to do it, and he's read all my books, and so I know if I have to leave and go get lunch or go to the bathroom or whatever, he can stand there and he can sell my books just as well as I can. So he's a living, breathing testament in this room to the fact that some of your fans are going to be so invested in you if you invest in them that they will actually become friends and eventually colleagues for life, potentially. Create that fun and memorable experience. So how do you do all this? So we're going to go through a quick checklist here. First of all, ask great questions. How many of you have ever had any sales training before, just by a show of hands? Any sales training on any level? You've sold cars, you've sold at retail, you've sold drugs. Maybe don't admit that part, but we'll figure it's sales training, right? Part of selling anything is asking an open-ended question. My favorite is when I see someone browsing the books, kind of looking at them real slow, and they'll tell you with their body language. If they're just walking past and they look and they keep going, let them go, right? But if they're just kind of like, perusing real slow like this, that's your cue. That's like, okay, I got to be on, right? My favorite question to ask is, what do you like to read? It's an open-ended question. It's not, do you like to read? If they say, no, and okay, why are you staring at my books? Kind of kills the conversation, right? So ask an open-ended question. Carice, what's your favorite question to ask? Who's the big reader in your family? Because then it doesn't assume that the person you're talking to is the reader. This is especially useful around now, the holiday season, because a lot of people who walk past our booths are shopping for other people instead of just themselves. We've had success with both questions. The point is, ask an open-ended question. And so that is what I mean when I say ask great questions. Number 2, listen and observe. We already talked about watching their body language. If they're scrutinizing your books and sort of doing this slow ostrich walk here, that's how you know that they're potentially interested. So observe their body language, observe what they're doing, and listen to their response. They will tell you exactly what they want. And then it's your job as the author of your book or books, to either say, sorry, I don't have anything for you, but maybe you should check out my friend Jerry, who's right around the corner, because she's got books that are different than mine. Or if they say, I like sci-fi, I like horror, I like fantasy, or whatever, then you can say, I've got fantasy right here. Can I show it to you? Or don't even ask if you can show it, just pick it up and hand it to them. That's really the better way to go. But if you listen and observe, they will carve out a path, and you just have to walk down it. Number 3, I just mentioned this, physically hand them your book. I don't have any hard data on this, but if you hand someone a book, there is a psychological transfership of ownership of the book, even though they haven't bought it yet. If you hand someone a book, it is very awkward for them to hand it back to you. Or set it down, especially if you have a kind of like a complicated display. They're like, where do I put this? And so hand them the book. So they take the book and then stand like this, right? It's kind of a dick move, but you know what? It makes it hard for them to hand it back, and you know, they'll be like this, and then it's kind of this waiting game of like, who's going to crack first? Haha. Hand them the book because it just increases the chance that they're going to want to take it with them. Plus, it also gives them the chance to read a few pages, read the back cover, all that fun stuff. Number 4, deliver your pitch. You've got to have your elevator pitch down. We'll talk about the anatomy of an elevator pitch actually right now. I want to make sure I keep moving. You got to have a hook. Usually the hook is what you start with. Having a reference point. Let me go back. A hook, something to grab their attention right away. So, Hun, what's a good example of a hook from Ignite? What would you say to someone? How do you hook people?
Okay, so
Come on up here.
saying it's teams, dragons, magic, secret society.
Teens, dragons, magic, a secret society, all my favorite things in life. That's what Carice says. When I hold up my sci-fi horror book, I say, this book starts out as a mystery, and then by the end of it, you're running for your life. So right away, like, you rule people out. Oh, no, I don't want that. It's sci-fi horror. Oh, no. You tell them the genre, that's another aspect of it. If they like sci-fi horror, then great. I've had people, their eyes just light up. They're like, oh, this is manna from heaven. And then other people, it's like, ooh. And then they put it away like I've been licking it or something. And I have, but I don't tell them that. So you got the hook. You want to grab them with something right away, something just to get them to kind of go, ooh. And then having a reference point is really useful as well because a lot of people have seen the movie Aliens. That is one of the ones that I use as a reference point for my sci-fi horror trilogy. If you like Aliens, you're going to love this series because it's the same 80s action horror vibe. Then you can kind of tease at the story, give them just enough to make them interested to flip it over and read the back cover. And at some point, you want to throw in the genre as well. These are the 4 elements. They don't necessarily have to be in this order, but if you have all these elements and if you can convey that in like 10 to 15 seconds, you're gold. Like, it doesn't have to be any longer than that, and you really don't want it to be too short either. Having a great book cover and great copy on the back of your book can do a lot of this work for you, by the way. It can do a lot of the heavy lifting. So if you are more of an introvert, get real good at copywriting and hire great designers. Pricing is a thing you have to share. It's not necessarily a thing that is essential to closing the deal. I've had people who come up and they're just like, I need this book. And I start explaining the pricing, they're just handing me their card because they want the book so bad. Pricing is something that you have to have, obviously, for your sake, because again, you want to make sure you have good margins. But it's not something that is absolutely necessary to convey in every sales interaction. Does that make sense? Are you following what I'm saying there? Our pricing, we keep it weird and we also keep it simple at the same time. Jerry pointed this out. It was very intentional. When we sell one book, it's a weird price. It's $17.95. As soon as we sell more than one book, the price changes. It goes to zeros, right? Because these zeros are easier to comprehend than $17.95. That's a lot. Is that $20? No, it's not quite $20. How much change am I getting back? Do I have $20? No. Do I have $17.95? Well, maybe. Do I have $30? Oh yeah, I've got two 20s. So I'll get 10 back. The math is super easy, right? That's why we price it this way. Now, you can't price your books this way unless it makes sense to do so for your margins. So you can steal this if you want, but only steal it if it makes sense based on what you're getting your books for. Based on all the printing connections and all the weird orders and stuff that I do, this pricing structure makes sense for me because I can get my books for roughly $6 a copy for a paperback. And we don't really do hardbacks except for my children's book, but that's a different thing. So for what it's worth, steal this if you want. You don't have to. Just make sure you understand it and make sure it makes sense. We'll talk very briefly about some of these. The concept of upselling, the bookmarks that I have now, these are a great upsell. People who are buying a book, I've only done 2 shows with these, and I have made a lot more money just from having these than from not having them. So I'm going to keep ordering them. I put them out there and say, if someone's buying a book, I just point to them and say, hey, do you need a new bookmark? You're already buying a book, so normally they're $7, but if you want one, I'll give them to you for $5. My margin is still really good, even at that price. And sometimes they say no, and if they say no, that's fine. Sometimes they say yes, and I make a little bit more money. Upselling is not just for bookmarks, it's for additional books, hence the pricing structure that I was just saying. If they buy 1 book, they can get it for 18, but if they buy more than 1, they can get them for 15 apiece. And then if they want to buy a lot of books, then they can get them for 5 for 70, which effectively drops them down to 14. I usually say basically your next book is only $10 on top of the 4 novel price. So the point of the upsell is so you can sell more books and further convert them into being a lifelong reader as opposed to just a casual fan who might buy one of your books and you'll never see them again. The more books that you can put in someone's hand, the more likely they are to be a fan forever. So upselling is great for that reason, and also you do actually get to bring in some more money. This is a logistical point, but number 7, finalize the sale before you sign anything, because if their credit card doesn't work, then you don't want to have a book written out to Jamie, and then now Jamie has to walk away because Jamie can't afford to pay for your book, because for whatever reason. And then you have to like kind of hold it and wait for another Jamie to come by, which is challenging. It's not there are too few Jamies, it's that you don't know if they're going to come to your booth or not. Anyway, sign the books when you sign them. Make it fun and unique and personalize it. I usually write a goofy saying. I actually have a different goofy saying for each of my books, and it just depends on what book they're buying. I've got a different phrase that I write in each one. One of them, all I write is "bite me," because it features a time-traveling raptor, and so I figured "bite me" would be a fun thing to write in there. And then I sign it and send them on their merry way. Freebies. I don't have any of the freebies here, but if you come see us on Friday, there are 3 effective types of freebies that we'll be able to show you on Friday at the event, and I've got pictures of them here. Postcards with links to free download signups for your mailing lists. I won't go into too much detail for that, but it's something to give them away, something to build your list. Business cards. This has been very effective because I've handed out business cards to people for my editing services, because that's another thing that I do. At events, coaching, editing, consulting, formatting, whatever I'm doing, I hand them this business card, and then if they contact me, then maybe I get some back-end business on this as well. Last of all, the king of freebies are magnets, because a magnet goes on someone's fridge and it stays there for all eternity and beyond. How many of you have ever thrown away a magnet from your fridge? How many of you have done it in the last month? How many of you have done it in the last year? Okay? How many of you have magnets that you will never throw away because you really, really like them? If you got a free magnet right now, would you be happy to slap it on your fridge if it was like a cool looking magnet? Of course you would. These cost roughly, if you buy them from 4 Over, they cost roughly 25 to 30 cents a piece. That's high. That's not a cheap amount, especially if you're buying like 500 at a time or whatever. But how much does an Amazon click cost for an ad these days? About the same, right? That's 1 click. That's one impression. You get an impression any time someone needs to come get another soda, another beer. I'm going to go make dinner. Oh, I should order those books. Midnight snack. Eventually they're going to be like, oh my, I should buy all those books and forever be in love with this author. Anyway, all right, it's Rick Astley time. Never give up. Sometimes book events don't go well. Don't give up after only 2 or 3 events. Really do as many as you can tolerate to test the waters. We talked about some different types of events to try. I'm trying to move fast. We've got a few minutes left before I want to bring up the panel. I want to highlight a few. Craft and maker shows. We kill it at those shows because that audience expects to have something that is tangible. Sure, you'll find the occasional ebook reader there, but that audience really, really values print books. And so if you're going to sell a print book, craft and maker shows are great. If you do sci-fi, fantasy type stuff, horror, Comic Cons can be great. Right now, holiday shows, excellent. If you can do a holiday show in a mall, it's like get a rake for all the money because it just pours in. This is our favorite time of year because the compounding effect of being in a mall and having it be busy because it's the holiday season, and usually it's also a Comic Con. That's just the nature of these shows that we're doing. We're like triple stacking the potential audience that can come in and buy from us. How do you find these shows? There is no magic answer for this. I just Google them, and occasionally I troll the Facebook events section, which is poorly organized, just to see if I can find something that's local and nearby that I can pop into real quick and try to sell some books. Ask other people for recommendations in your area. If they're doing shows, there's a good chance that you can get into. Even if they're not authors, you still might be able to get into some sort of local event that they're already doing. You got to count cost at the end. What did you spend? What did you make? And then was it worth it? Was it worth it to invest that time and energy or not? Should you do it again, or are there better options? I've had to make these decisions, and I don't regret it. Oh, look, I've got gifts. It takes time, effort, and persistence. If you suck at Amazon ads like me, it's much easier. It's a more tangible way of doing business, and that's why I do this, because I cannot get the ads to work for me to save my life. But I can drive a few hours every weekend and come home with several hundred, sometimes 4 figures or more in book sales. Grow your business over time. Okay, so we talked about this. This was an overview. We've got some time left. Panelists, come on up. We've got Jeneth Dick. She can help you with all of these things. We're going to cycle through some of these things. Now, this is the Q&A, so if you've got questions, start lining up by the microphone over there, please, and we'll be happy to answer any questions we have. I will briefly introduce each of our panelists, and you can certainly feel free to contact them separately as well. And if y'all don't have questions, I'm happy to feed them some questions for us. So, Jeneth, raise your hand, please. This is Jeneth. She is fantastic. She did the cover for my Power Author books. She also did my cover for All I Want for Christmas is Nukes, which is, oh, it's such a fantastic cover. I have an image of it on my bookmark up here. Next, we have Arpit, who is our conference photographer. He is fantastic for photography, of course. That's why he's here. Great at branding. He helped design all of my display elements that you see before me. And then we have Dave Sheets, who is printer, distributor extraordinaire for all sorts of different printing solutions. If you want it printed, he can help you do it. He's our guy. And then, of course, Carice Crow, my talented and lovely wife, who runs her podcast, who does a lot of events, and she puts up with me. So feel free to ask questions about that, too, because I don't know how she does it. So anyone with questions, feel free to come up. All right, we've got 1, 2. Excellent. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing fine.
Great.
I guess when you're going out and you're doing all these live events, are you normally staying within just one state? Or if you're going through multiple states, how do you handle sales tax and managing all that? Especially
right.
As it grows, I mean, you're just,
yep.
It seems like it gets exponentially more involved.
Yep. Great question. Hire an accountant. That's really, honestly, that's the way to go. We have a great accountant, and he just handles that for us because that, to me, is the same as figuring out all the metrics for Amazon ads. I don't want to do it, nor would I be good at it. But he is good at it, so I let him do it.
We do still charge sales tax.
Yeah, we still charge the sales tax. We still collect it. We let him sort it out.
Whether it's 7% in this state or 8 or 9 in the next, that's for the accountant to figure out. We will cover that.
Yeah.
What, like 1
nominal
to
difference.
3% difference?
Well, and with
of whatever, it all gets sorted by the accountant.
With a point of sale program like Square, you can just change the sales tax. You can Google what it's going to be in advance, change it, and then it'll just collect that rate for the time that you're in that particular state. So Square is a great program. I highly recommend it. Wayne, what's up?
Hey. Do you have any certain guidelines that you follow for how much inventory to bring at any given event?
What will fit in my SUV? Seriously,
That's a legit answer.
that's really what it is. Get good at Tetris because you're going to be playing it for the rest of your life with fitting your books in here. Basically, you're going to sell a lot more of book one, right? Book one is always going to be your biggest seller, just like it is on Amazon. Your next biggest seller, in my experience, if you have a completed series, is going to be your omnibus version. And sometimes they even jockey, for some of my series, they jockey for which one is in first place. Sometimes the omnibus will sell more at an event than even book one will. But for the most part, book one generally does take the cake. So have lot more copies of book one because you're just going to cycle through them more. And that's good to know because you can justify bigger orders of book one up front and get those for potentially an even cheaper cost.
I got two.
Yeah.
Number one, what is your favorite way that someone has handed the book back to you?
Favorite way.
Oh, I know that answer.
Go ahead.
It was the woman who asked about the lizards.
Oh, yes.
And then you had the lizard man, and she said, "This is not for me."
So-
and, like, she was very angry about
So,
the way you
so the
treated
story
lizards.
was, I have my young adult fantasy trilogy. She had read the back of the first book, and it talks about there's a giant lizard person who shows up, and he's helping out the main character. And she says, as a lizard owner, will I be offended by this book? Mm-hmm. And I kind of looked at her and said, well, ma'am, this is like a giant lizard person, so I don't really think this will apply. And she just kind of shakes her head. This is not for me. And then you can't make this stuff up, right? That actually happened to me. So good answer. That is accurate.
Second question.
Yes.
Of course, the more volume you get, the lower your per unit price
Yep.
is. So at some point, you run out of storage space at home?
Yes. Storage space. Dave has warehouses that if you need to, you can print a whole bunch. He can warehouse them for you. Obviously, there's fees associated with that. That's when you're talking like a lot of books. We have converted our garage mostly to storage, but we can still park in it because I'm not that kind of person. I want to park in my garage. So I have shelves around the garage, and then I have a bunch of books stored in our basement as well. Basically wherever I can fit them without it being at risk of burning my house down if something were to catch on fire. That's what I do.
Right, but you said you have 30 books now?
I have 20.
20?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be 24 by the end of the year. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you are going to continue to run out of space.
But also some of my books definitely sell a lot more and a lot more consistently. So I know that I can carry more of those on a given day and carry fewer of the ones that don't sell quite as much. So again, that's where it comes in handy to know what sells and what doesn't sell and to have kind of maintain an inventory that way. Yes,
Who
sir.
do you publish your books through? Ingram Sparks or
Publish or print?
print?
Print, I've got a great connection. Actually, Dave, why don't you handle this because you're the guy.
We actually print anywhere from 50 to as many copies as an author needs. Ben actually introduced me to a partner that we both utilize, and that actually has helped me create a new company. And this isn't a sales pitch, but I do want to hand these out because I think you'll be interested in that. We were asked 3 years ago to create a solution that was an alternative to Ingram print and Amazon print.
Yep.
And so we have done that. We've got the information right here for those that want it. I'll just call it out. It's indieauthorprintondemand.com.
Yep.
And what it allows you to do is not only print and upload for free, print as many books as you want, but you can also aggregate an order of multiple titles and get the aggregate order cost. So 5 titles, 100 copies of each equals 500. You get the 500 print cost, which is really, really nice. Nobody else is doing that
Right.
in the industry. So that's how you can start to do this with low volume, and you can do it kind of rapidly, or you can also drop ship to wherever you might be going as well, which is a super nice feature.
Thank you, Dave. So yeah, indie author print on demand is what I would recommend because the printing solution that Dave has created is really author friendly, and it's going to be so much better than Amazon and what's the other one? Ingram Spark. The only caveat is that currently they do not do hardcovers and no cream paper at this point, but there's a shortage.
Well, cream paper is because
Yeah,
of supply chain
it's-
issues
you
right
can't
now.
get it
So we're
anywhere.
doing white paper, but yeah, we've got that ability. I think somebody asked me why would I move over? Well, two reasons. I think we're a little bit easier to work with because you can actually talk to me and somebody directly. The second thing is because our quality is just much higher
It's so much
it's
better.
consistent. And that was the catalyst 3 years ago as people were saying, hey, we need an alternative because the quality is all over the map with these folks and we don't like that. And I understand that.
So I can't recommend this enough. It's a fantastic new option. Other questions? So technically we are out of time. Thank you all for coming. If you have further questions for any of us, please come up. Arpit, did you want to add something?
There's exactly 10 of you that have gotten your headshots, and I know, so the rest of you better be there tomorrow or Thursday.
You better show up.
Get your headshots, free headshots. You can't say no. If any of you want to come, please come grab one of Dave's cards for the printing solution. This is a great option. And then if you have questions,
Yeah,
feel
just
free
for
to chat me up.
everybody picking up one
Well,
of
thank
those
you.
cards.
Thank you.